Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order, and we do have minutes to approve for our June 6th meeting.
So moved.
Second one.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Are there any corrections or additions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. And the first item on our agenda tonight is to review the public hearing, and I will just open it up to any reaction or comments from the budget members.
Well, we had a good turnout. Kind of did a little keeping up with everybody. I think about 22 people spoke, and the consensus, I guess, was on the 22 was don't want taxes, but there was, I think, 3 or 4 that thought we needed to. We're being serenaded. There was 2 or 3 probably thought we needed to go even higher because they'd come from another state or thought that we were needed to put some extra funds in, you know, in the general altogether, I guess. But it was a good turnout. But when you think of it, you know, we got 280,000 people in Rutherford County, and we had about 50 here, about 11 commissioners, or 12 commissioners, I believe, and 22 people to speak. That was better than some years, but, you know, in that relation, you kind of was hoping that there'd be more. Commissioner Stevens made some points that I thought were pretty good on a couple things, and I'd like to ask Lisa or anybody on the budget committee, I guess, you know, about changing that insurance thing, or doing not really insurance, but like doing the 401k and
Pension?
yeah, the pension. That might be something for us to.
On the pension thing, we've already started thinking about this and working on this a few months ago. It's going to be a deliberative process. It's going to take us maybe 6 months, maybe a year and a half. But that's major changes. But we are on
And
that
we've started that discussion even with the with the department heads
already.
over a year ago.
And even he said on new hires.
Yes.
I mean,
So
it would
it's
have
not
to
gonna
be.
save
See,
you anything.
State law won't
today.
It
I mean,
will not allow you to change it
yeah.
except on the new hires. You have to stay with the system you've got for the current employees.
In
I
20
see.
years, they'll save us a fortune, but it
Right,
won't
but not
save us
now,
anything
because
on the tax problem today.
Well, it's like the insurance with the changes we made on it, that the new hire is totally different. than
Absolutely.
it-
We did that a year or 2 ago, yeah.
Yeah.
the only thing that I'd like to just clarify the statement that 7 governmental entities pulled out because it was insolvent. My understanding, that's not the reason why they pulled out. 3 of them are East Tennessee, and their contribution rate was more than their government wanted to pay, which was higher. It's high. What they were paying
see,
is higher
yeah.
than what the county is paying.
Right.
But for them, that was their decision. Was we just, you know, it was too high, and really that's what the comptroller was. And not the comptroller, treasurer was giving information, again, well over a year ago that we've been talking about this. But that
I
was
didn't know
the
you
why.
was already in those talks though,
See,
and
they
so
made
you know.
major changes that allows counties, and the state has even adopted some of their own changes for their new hires as well already.
Didn't they give about 4, there's like
Oh,
4
four
different
different
options or
things we
something,
do.
your
Right.
combinations
Right.
and all
Lots of
this.
But we have to sort of craft those, project those, cost those, and see what's really workable and doable in a practical way.
The legislature made changes for local governments that could go into effect 7/1/12. And in the beginning, I was concerned that we really needed to do something quickly to try to take advantage of that. But found out later that anything that we do, we can capture those people who have been hired since 7/1/12. In essence, at that point, I understand they could also be included in the change. They would just have this year or so being non-contributory, but they could be brought in to the next group as well. So,
Do we need to be divulging that to what few people have been hired? We haven't been hiring many people, but we need to make sure that's
that's a potential.
communicated. or somebody.
But then y'all could make the change too, that it's for hires as of this date.
Yeah, I think we're working in that direction, and we need to make that a
But anyway, I guess I just wanna let you know that that's not something, I mean, it is something that we've been working through and having several conversations with the state treasurer directly to us.
He's even been to speak to all of our department heads a year ago about these very possible options that we can maybe consider adopting that will improve as we go forward. It won't do anything but what we're doing today.
Anybody who is in the,
Do they have to be vested or just in employment?
Just in employment.
employment. And I don't know if it was Jeff or Sonia that may have the additional information, and people who are here in it and then they leave and then they come back. Jeff?
What I have been told, if you leave and come back, if you are a contributory member like a teacher, if you have kept your money in, you can go back in to the old plan. And there's somewhere, you have more than a year or two in which to come back.
But anyway,
They are moving on to change for the teachers also.
One thing I want to throw out there, and I agree with y'all, we're going to have to do something with our pension plan there. And I think everybody in here knows my wife is a teacher. Matter of fact, my oldest daughter is a teacher, doesn't live with me. So, but the thing that concerns me, and I've heard this from educators, principals, and other teachers, is the reason they came to Rutherford County was because, partly because of this pension plan. So I think we're drawing sometimes a higher caliber teacher, or we've got more people wanting to come here because of those benefits. And yes, those benefits do mean a great deal to people. So I think we need to keep that in mind too. I don't know how that would,
well, I think all
affect us
all
if everybody in the whole
public school
state.
teachers are gonna fall into TCRS.
Right. And if that's the case, and it's statewide, we won't be hurt. But, if you've got systems out there, and of course other states may be different, but if you've got systems out there that are competing that have got better benefits, I mean, I'm telling you, these new kids, they're going to go where the benefits are, and I see that every day in the workforce wherever you're at, public and private. So, you say, well, we do need to be competitive too, to bring in a good quality people. I mean, we didn't get exemplary schools because we've got poor teachers.
Well, I'd like to mention a couple things. One thing I about choked when Ms. Nolan started, because when she said the 15% of the public school children in Rutherford County are in Murfreesboro, well, it sounded like 50% to me is what she said.
Sorry, not
But it is,
enunciate.
but we have to contribute as much to Murfreesboro for those students as we contribute to the county for our students there. And another thing is, it wasn't brought up the other night, and I had y'all double check it, but our debt rating, bond rating in the state of Tennessee, there's two counties that are higher than us, and that's Williamson and Hamilton. And we can go a step further with Williamson. Its tax rates for, if you're in the county, is what, $231, I think, just 15 cents less than ours. But the property values in Williamson County are way higher than they are in Rutherford County. In other words, you can buy a house in Rutherford County for probably 30% cheaper, 35% cheaper than you can in Williamson, which means that when they collect property taxes off those, even at a 15-cent less rate, it's going to bring in a lot more money. And another thing, and I think he's here tonight, the gentleman that moved down here about a year and a half ago from New York State, and was talking about their high taxes, and then he mentioned about per capita for the schools, and he mentioned Utah and how much lower they were, and they were around 8,000. Well, ours this year, according to the state figures that they put out, is $8,098 per student, which puts us 116th out of 137 school districts in this state. And one reason, that does not include building though. which we do quite a bit of. But the thing with that is, I don't know if that's to be proud of or not, but I think we get the old statement of a lot of bang for our buck with that. And the one reason why it's as high as it is because we had Race to the Top, and we've gotten monies from the federal monies. The last couple of years have been higher than they were previously, and we're getting some monies this year for technology, from what I gather. But then it'll be nudging back down again, so that the federal money will be going out. I guess that's about enough for right at the moment.
Well, one speaker did have some comments about our property tax and how it compared to other counties surrounding us and in the state. Mayor Burgess, I think, has
Well,
some
Ms. Nolan
information.
has printed off here the tax rates for all of the counties. And I think the comment was made that our tax rate is higher than all of the Middle Tennessee counties except for Davidson County. I'll just read off some of these. This is not scientific.
And then also that this rate that you're saying is,
This is current rate, this is 2012 rate.
right, but these numbers are
These numbers
lower.
are in excess of what we've even recommended.
Right, that's it.
Coffee County is 297. Dixon County is 285. Franklin County is 267. Giles County is 277. Marshall County is 322. Murray County is 260. Montgomery County is 314. Putnam County is 280. Robertson is 289. And there may be others, but that just tells you that there are any number of counties in Middle Tennessee. Trousdale County, a little bitty county, is 312. And Wilson is 257. So we're not out of line with what we're projecting on our recommendation of 256. All of those numbers are higher.
I know when I joined the commission, I believe the tax rate was 278. So what are we? Yeah.
That brings up another thing I've heard here in these meetings here, and I heard the other night also, and just to point something out, seems like every year we pay more taxes. Well, your rate stays the same from one reappraisal to the next, unless, in this case, the legislative body will put, because you could live in a city and they can raise theirs, unless the legislative body raises it, or whether you do something on your property. You add or you subtract. I know I've run into people, they built literally a garage with an apartment over it for their granddaughter and her family, and could not believe that their property tax went up. You know, and they were on tax-free, senior tax-free. But they added all that, and it all has value. And that's something else that this commission did several years ago for both. I think it was about 4 years ago now. The second year was we've put in the senior tax freeze, in which it freezes somebody 65 and older, and if they have some disabilities, younger than that, at their rate, unless again they do something. And we have senior tax relief, which the state has. And I remember when I first came on the commission, we sent to the state to increase the amount, because this was early 2000s or something, and it was like $12,000, and now it's up to like $27,000. And until we put in a tax freeze, we doubled what the state gave, and we're still.
We still do.
No, we don't double.
We double.
Up to $3.06.
$2 for every dollar that the state provides, the county provides $2 on tax relief.
Forever?
That's
I
on
thought we
job.
put the limit on it with what we had it at $306.
You're right,
Okay,
you're right.
okay.
You're
So we
right, I
give
forgot
that,
that piece.
and that's, gives, you know,
It's
we,
$300 or
yeah,
total
it's
for
306, I
16,
think is
yeah.
what it worked out, because the state's was 153 is what they gave
You're
it
right.
at. Okay.
And
So-
there's also a maximum amount you can make to qualify for that too.
Yeah, but it's up now like $27,000, which is a far cry from the 12,000 7 or 8 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, we do some things, and I noticed that some people the other night talked about the fixed income people and single mothers and this type thing. So I think, and until just recently when Laverne did it on the tax freeze, Nobody else in this county does it, no city. And Laverne did do that one.
Oh, one of the other things I remember, somebody said the Rutherford County employees each had $8 million in retirement.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
I think they need to check their math, but promise you that's not true. If that was the case, I'd be trying to get a county job myself, so.
Oh, I want to mention Charles Redmond, who is a volunteer firefighter. And I think he lives in the city of Murfreesboro, but he works in the, with the volunteers in the county. And a decent fire department can drop your insurance rates significantly if you have it. And I know he's an advocate, and it's something that we're going to have to look at in the very near future for people that live in the county, so that we can, as we get, I'm on public safety, we get a report, and it seems like every month there's 4 or 5 homes that are gone, because by the time they can get there. Now, there's some that are safe too. But what that'll mean, because we're getting close to the point where the county money that's generated, the sales tax or whatever, we're getting to the point that I'm just bringing it up that in the not too distant future, if you live in the county, for fire, there's gonna be some kind of situs tax that'll be coming. And I just don't want it to be a shock, because someday it's gonna happen. But it could help you in the long run.
Depending on your
Yeah,
home
with your insurance. And I'll tell you, if you ever I got hit by the flood myself. Now, it's not a fire, but I'll tell you, all of a sudden, it's a shock when you gotta pull out some money or something like that to pay for it. I now have flood insurance, even though I'm not in a flood zone, for example.
Any other comments from any member of the committee?
I'm gonna make one more, and that's just that numerous times people said we gotta look where to cut. And I think we do it. And, we look and see if there's something that we don't really need in there. I mean, all of us here, and I know there's others, as you heard Commissioner Stevens the other night talking. Sometimes though, we decided it's better to leave it there than it is to cut. That it's got more benefits for us than the little bit, than what it costs us in this type thing.
When we published the public hearing, our notice did say we were encouraging citizens to attend and make comments, but we also said that interested citizens could be given an opportunity for written concern. If you will take a look here, and I will ask for your reaction or any comments as you take this. And also at the bottom is just my notes of a phone call from an interested citizen.
I will agree with one thing said during the public hearing the other night. Mr. Roberts Troop got up and spoke.
Excuse me, would you make sure that copy comes on down this way for Mayor Burgess? Thank you.
Mr. Troop didn't identify himself, but Mr. Troop.
Yes.
A lot of us know Mr. Troop. He's on the planning commission, and he was talking about one of his tenants had to borrow $10 for formula for their baby, and I rent properties. I have for 24 years, and I've never seen a time where people are strapped for cash as they are right now. All the stuff on the news is talking about how the economy is better, but the people I deal with are struggling more than I've ever seen in my 24 years of experience of doing this. And so the memo hadn't got to the everyday person out there about how the economy's better, because there are so many people struggling just to pay their rent. They're bringing me a check every Friday, or I'm working with them the best I can, and a whole lot of people on the bubble of literally being homeless that weren't like that 7 or 8 years ago, or even 3 years ago. So like I said, the memo hadn't got to everybody that the economy's better. It hadn't reached their checkbook yet.
As you can see here, some of these things were addressed at our public hearing also. Any comments or reaction?
Was there, am I seeing just two people that made a comment here?
These two, yes,
Yes.
yes. But I did want to honor the fact that we did present the fact that interested citizens could be given an opportunity to write written comments.
And Madam Chairman, I don't know about the commissioners, but the mayor has not received one phone call or one email regarding the budget that we recommended, positive or negative. I have had 2 or 3 persons just to tell me that, you know, they support what we're proposing, but I haven't had a single person to send an email or place a phone call.
Well, just to make it open as far as what these folks have asked, AEDs for the ambulance, $98,000, thinks they need to cut that. Cut all building projects for EMS budget. Cut solid waste completely out.
There's no property tax goes solid waste now, is there?
None.
I don't like the health insurance going up 1 penny for the employees, and the SROs. Well, that's just a statement. SROs, I'm sure, will be debated, and then cut the vehicles. So those are the 4, 5, 6 things that we have here from 2 people. So.
Another thing, if you cut solid waste out, you go back to like you did before we had it, they'd be throwing it out all over the county everywhere, where they find a spot to throw it. Well, then you could drive down the road without seeing that were dump piles.
Well, and that's another issue altogether. There's going to come a day we don't have the landfill, we don't have the deal that's saving our taxpayers millions of dollars right now, and so there's going to be a day that we're going to pay for that, us taxpayers, for our solid waste needs that we're going to. But hopefully that'll be after my time, and somebody else can deal with it.
Well, I know, because really, I get pickup from the locals, and I take recycle down to the convenience centers. But that convenience centers, if that's what you want to do, if you want to use it, and you live in, well, certain areas that are close, so it doesn't cost more to go with gas. But I can tell you, it costs you about $20 or so a month to get pickup at your house, and you multiply that by 12. And that's $240 a year right there.
Gentlemen, any other comments relative to our public hearing?
I noticed they also said cut out the building projects from EMS, and then on public safety, you know, none of us on public safety were thrilled with not really having a direction where we're going, but that's changed. You know, we're actually looking at leasing a long-term lease, or I don't know if that's the right word, of this facility over here that's next to the old hospital grounds. So I think that's been decided, so that's one that can probably be struck off that list. But
Well, tell them what the cost of that lease is.
I think it's $1 for
$1 a
50
year.
years.
$1 a
or-
year for
yeah.
50 years. But, you know, you gotta upgrade it so it's usable, but
Mayor, can you address the AEDs? It seemed like that's been brought up a couple of times, but, you know, we're talking about $98,000, and we were definitely thinking that's something that we don't need to cut out,
Well,
but seemed like it keeps popping up every now and then, so.
I don't know whether $98,000 is exactly the right number, so I can't address that, but we've talked about cardiac monitors and AEDs.
Mhm.
And I think there is some thought that there is an alternative to the type of AEDs that EMS has been using that are cheaper, maybe even some I think that the sheriff's office may have acquired. So
Okay.
we're open to that. I think we need to leave our dollars in there like it is. This is a standard product that our ambulance service has used forever. But if we can find a better product to use, we'll do that. And before we purchase these at this price, if this is the correct price, we'll evaluate that carefully and thoughtfully.
I think I remember you saying the exact same thing in one of these other meetings, so I appreciate that. I've forgotten what you'd said about that. The health insurance,
He's
you know, is just a,
He's suggesting that we don't put any
Right.
additional costs on the
Right.
employees, and we're putting 38% more on the employees than
Right.
they're currently paying on the average, so,
And a lot of people aren't happy. They want more on the employees.
yes.
Commissioner Bond's proposal and Commissioner Stevens have both said, put more on the employees than this. And this letter here was saying, don't put any on the employees.
Yeah.
we're going the other way if we do that. We've got a plan.
I think we've got a reasonable plan that's
Yeah.
not perfect, but it's certainly a good start, and we'll continue that same direction. We're gonna keep moving toward 80-20. And it may take us a few more years, and it will.
Last two issues, SROs and vehicles, Sheriff. I agree with the comment here. I think it'll be debated on the floor. But I believe the SROs, didn't we have 21 commissioners vote for it?
The concept.
Voted for the concept,
Concept.
and it was stated that was not for the hiring, that it was a good,
Yeah.
it was a good
That
concept.
it didn't have a dollar figure attached to it.
Was it one that said that, and bring them on as you can?
To be hired as possible. It didn't necessarily say this budget year.
Right.
Okay.
I'd vote for the concept of 6 in each school. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Might never get there, you know, probably won't.
Well, you know, the SRO thing, I mean, we started that program, and maybe it was the tragedy in this other state that inspired finishing this project. But that number from what we talked about went from $1.5 million down to 7 something, wasn't it? 700,000.
743, I think.
And that's the, you know, start up, get them through and get them there, and then it goes down from there. I think it's about half of that then on an annual basis.
580 something, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, it's a little
Yeah.
more than half then.
It's about
But,
a penny a year after the first
Right.
year.
That's something I can't fuss. My kids are in schools that have SROs, and I would just be, I would be wrong in voting against it because my kids have it, and there's some others out there that don't, and so I don't think that would be right. And that's something that we've wanted to finish. Is, like I said before, something that we haven't. Those kids in those other schools have not gone without. They've been in a rotating type thing, and they've been there, and thank God we haven't had an issue. And I think this is the preventive matter. You know, when we first started this program, it was get them in the high schools as quick as you can. That's where we need them. And man, they have helped so much in high schools. They can't do without them. Elementary schools, it can be debated whether we could take them out of the elementary schools, but I think they're setting a rapport, like somebody said the other day, maybe it was you, Sheriff, that said that. You know, some of these kids don't have a father figure. They don't, it shows these guys in uniforms are good guys, you know, and ladies, and that they're protecting you, and they're for you, and they're gonna help you. And not just police type matters, but in a lot of other things. And so,
So they
it's a-
also deal with a lot of domestic issues.
Is this an open meeting?
No.
Okay.
he's the
City of
sheriff as an elected official here, so he can
Okay.
comment and I'm pointing to him.
The city of Murfreesboro doesn't have SROs in any of their schools, do they?
No,
No.
they rearranged some things over there.
So that's my thought about that. And then the vehicles,
The person who sent this in suggested that we perhaps cut them in half and do some vehicles this year, some vehicles next year. His argument was that many times when we put X number of vehicles in the budget, many times we do not get those in operation that same budget year anyway. So he asked that we consider cutting them perhaps in half.
that's true.
If you think about it, we've already cut it in half from the original request.
And that is true. Gentlemen, I don't know if it would be helpful because it is important that this committee decide on a strong recommendation. would it be helpful if we go ahead and ask the finance director to give us the latest numbers and the latest adjustments?
Sure.
That might be considered and might be helpful in making a decision.
You saw it on there, so you saw it on TV.
No, not since 3:43. 3:43. Okay.
So hot off the press. huh?
Hot off the press, it has a 3:43.
I didn't know if it's set in the sun or if it was still warm. So.
Okay.
Did everybody get a copy?
Okay, so when we initially presented these, the numbers were going back to April. We're doing our estimates of fund balance of where we thought we'd be. Since then, we've had revenue adjustments, and here we are, 20th of the month. So I am estimating an increase on the general fund of the beginning fund balance from 16 to 18 million. Also, this is a set third page in your packet, additional revenues of 292,597 and additional appropriations of 229,565. Then then in the schools, adjust up mixed drink tax, go down on TVA and up on sales tax on the estimate. If you go to that third page, you'll see where it's like this, you'll see the details of the numbers that I'm adjusting. So on the revenue, adjusting the pilot, this is just a firmed up number from yesterday, and this is the pilot agreement on Nissan's battery plant. We had the personal property in the estimates, but not the plant itself. So we could adjust for that. This number on the health department contract, after we've made those with insurance and for the pay steps, this is just matching the revenue to what their budget is. Adjusting cable franchise fees up, and then estimating more for the excess fee for the trustee coming in. So that totals 292,597. The estimate for appropriations increasing, we just did this on the last commission meeting, the EMA, to put in for, it's 25,000 for renovating the tower, 500 for rent, back taxes. I just estimated that at 8,000, so that's that 33,500. Paul's has got a grant carryover that will carry over from this fiscal year to next fiscal year that they won't spend. This is money that they've advanced, so I do need to increase their budget. It's either do it now or come back in August, but it will be done since he's able to give me the numbers. I'm estimating to adjust it.
Is that the trailer deal? Is that?
No, I don't think it's a.
That was it rules.
The spade neuter,
It's
yeah.
new.
I don't think it's
Yeah,
a.
yeah.
I can't remember which one truly I can't remember, but these are the two account numbers that needs
Okay.
to be adjusted, 302 and 413. The 60,000 for building improvements, these are monies that we've received that from insurance to repair buildings, but there's no way that he can do it this year. And actually, it's monies that we got at the end of last fiscal year. It's already sitting in fund balance. It's too late to bring this up and try to get it adjusted now for him to pay out this year. So I'm recommending it to go back into his line item, and then to adjust the trustees' commission of what to be paid out on some revenues in the general fund. So with that said, and that estimate, it would bring our ending unassigned fund balance to 17.51% of total appropriations, or a little less than 9.5 weeks worth of appropriations. On the schools, I don't have a detailed page like this, but schools does not feel comfortable adjusting their beginning fund balance, but definitely felt that we could improve our estimate for sales tax next year to, additional 400,000. And as I said, an increase for the mixed drink tax of 90,000. So, and reduction of TVA revenue sharing of 15. This would bring their estimate to, ending fund balance at 3.55% of their appropriations.
Backing up a minute, it takes me a second to comprehend sometimes.
Okay.
The $60,000 insurance money to Paul's that was paid at the end of last fiscal.
No,
No.
that wasn't the pause. This is the
Yeah,
hail
oh, you
damage
paid
for
the EMA.
buildings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if it was paid at the end of last fiscal
It
year.
would, no, we received the money.
End of
the insurance.
End of last fiscal year, not
Like in
current
June.
fiscal year.
Mhm.
What's been happening for the last 10 months?
Well, I think it was a matter of trying to figure out what they were gonna do.
Oh, that's the burnout,
No, that's
No,
not,
that's not
no,
burnout
it's
burn.
hail damage.
hail damage.
Hail
Okay,
damage
well,
on it.
I mean, it just seems like that money just floating around. It's been sitting there 10
No,
months.
it's just
and
been
then-
sitting in fund balance. I mean, if he had
Right.
had the
Right.
plan in place, we would be asking for it to come out of fund balance and put it
We
in his
could use-
budget this
I mean,
year.
if they can't figure out what to do with it, we could use it for capital expenditures and not use other money, is what I'm wondering about, but it's, if they haven't figured out what to do with it in 10 months,
Well, it's
you
been,
know,
but it's not
offset
been.
some other expenditures with it.
It's
you
not
know.
been in his budget to be used for other things either. It's remained in fund balance.
Keep us up informed on that, because if they can't figure out what to do with it, we need to use that for a capital expenditure, in my opinion, instead of just looking for a home for $60,000.
Well, I mean, this would be to repair those buildings that were damaged.
You know, but if, why haven't we started on that in the last 10 months is all I'm wanting to know. If we got paid this last June, that meant the damage was significantly before that. I mean, I'm not trying to beat up the messenger here, but I would just think we'd be doing something with it. I mean,
We do have taken some bids on one or two of the roofs, but they're not $60,000 in total, I don't believe, but we haven't got it, we haven't spent the money yet.
On page 2,
Okay.
you got new general penny and new school penny. I thought, yeah, I didn't bring it with me, I said, I don't need this, but what you showed us the other night, I could have sworn that the new school penny was 502,000.
582. No, you got it. Look, if you go to the last page,
The last page.
last
Yeah.
page, I've got your,
The small page.
Small print. Oh, okay.
502.
502,
Oh.
805.
You can look at all.
But if you added new pennies,
Okay.
it'd be 498.21.
Okay. That was before.
$4,000.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
difference,
Why is that? Go.
you wanna know the difference?
The freeze? No,
The freeze is the tax freeze. So you've got a
There's
portion.
new people enrolling on tax freeze since.
That, well, this is, what I'm trying to show here is with the $2.56.52, when you go to the very end, a penny will generate 586,703. But if you add pennies, not all those people,
Come up, some of
But
them.
you got-
51 million worth of property is on tax-free, so additional penny's not gonna bring the
Yeah,
same
so
amount.
it's-
Mhm.
The difference is growing or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Mayor Burgess, do you have anything you would like to add, or your reaction to the public hearing?
No, I think you covered that pretty well. I mean, we've covered a few specifics. Most of the comments were general statements, and those that were specific, I think we've had a good discussion about those even tonight.
One thing that is repeated over and over is prioritize, and, you know, that's something I think that we have done, you know, it's reflected in the budget. I know there are a lot of things out there that a lot of us would still like to see, and one thing about being on budget is whether you agree with some of the proposals that are here or not, you've got to figure out a way to pay for it, whether you're for any of it, but that's, you know, part of our job. You know, I know that being a volunteer firefighter, I know the needs new engines out there. Last time the county bought them, it's been well over 10 years ago. And some of those pieces of equipment are failed. You know, and we can go on and on. And, you know, we've got a judicial building that's we put off for I don't know how many years, but we're gonna get to the point where we can't put it off anymore. Unfortunately, that's what we've had to do in cases. So, like I said, you know, we do look at priorities. This budget reflects a lot of those.
And Madam Chairman, I do want to make one comment to follow up on what Commissioner P just said there. I've been in Nashville at a series of meetings today, and this is just one piece of information I've received. It tells us where we are, Rutherford County population-wise, and where we're going to be. And folks, we're not going to plateau at 270,000 people. The projections that they have here by 2040 will be at 592,000 people. 329. Even if they're way off, we're going to see some major continued increases in what happens in Rutherford County. It's astounding what's being projected. We've got to have enough foresight and vigor and vision to continue to do what we have to do to keep in place the resources, keep in place the ability to borrow capital at a low rate, or else we're not going to be able to meet these demands and services that are going to be before us. What we're seeing now in demand of services is just the tip of the iceberg of where we're going. So it's going to take some fortitude and it's going to take some will, but we're going to have to do this to keep this county strong so that we'll have the resources so that we can move forward for the next generation and the next generation. This is really overwhelming to think about what can happen here and what would happen in this county and a few others like Williamson primarily. We're the two counties that are going to get the greatest increase in growth in Tennessee, really. And just as he said, what brought it to my mind, if we increase 329,000 more people in the next 25 years, that judicial building over there, which is already undersized, and that jail down there, which is sometimes more than over capacity, we are going to have to address those. We have to be in a position to address these things in a timely manner, or else we're going to have really serious difficulties for us.
That over doubles our population, so that'll over double the size of our school system.
In school
So we've
system,
got-
I've left that piece
That
off.
means 40 more
We're
schools in the
not
next
through
40
with building
years.
new schools either.
Building on top of each
You know,
other.
I think back when it was, the population was 80-some thousand
Yeah.
in 10 years. Did it double in 10?
160 or whatever,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
180.
I know in 1980, when I moved here in 78, and in 1980 it was 84,000 people in this county.
Well, I just wondered,
You're still new.
those people sitting around the table, those people sitting around the table in the 90s, would they have ever seen what happened in 10 years?
Well, everybody knows friends that have come back and they get lost when they come into this town. They don't know where they're at. Just from the changes that's happened in as few as 10 years, so.
Madam Chairman, I didn't want to put Commissioner Baum on the spot, but he was kind of popular the other night too. And a lot of folks, I'm sure you'll chime in if you had something to chime in, but I was going to point to you anyway. So, you got any words of wisdom to come from that area down there?
Not specifically. I'll say my position hadn't changed. I still support some of the reductions in increases that my plan laid out several weeks ago. But you all have already heard that.
And what's our plan from here?
Well, the plan would be, I would need you to approve these revenue estimates and these appropriations again. Well, specifically, there's really no change except on the county general, with revenues being at $79,667,002. Appropriations, $83,110,306. School revenue, $289,652,377. And the appropriations still is the same at $300,005,565. total revenues for all funds being $460,975,539. Appropriations for all funds, $481,787,781. So really, as far as making a change, I guess that would just, I hated it.
So if anybody wanna do any cutting, we're just gonna start
You can tell me
throwing
now.
out.
You can tell me now.
Well, I voted against the SROs a couple of weeks ago because, no offense to Commissioner P, I think it is a knee-jerk reaction. I disagree with Commissioner Sandlin. It's not finishing the project. There never has been in the long-range plan to have an SRO in every elementary school, and anything I've seen. I've been a commissioner 12 years. I hate to give that much credit to one idiot in Connecticut that ruined countless lives. Hate to imagine how many millions of dollars are being spent nationwide because of one crazy person. What if he had gone on a school bus and shot somebody? Would we be putting SROs in every bus? I think it is a knee-jerk reaction. I think we've got tight times. I think an extra 11 SROs is wasteful, and that's an extra $580,000 every year, plus inflation. And I'll make the motion to remove the new SROs for the elementary school, but leave in the ones, that's 11, I believe, but leave in the ones for the high school. And I probably won't get any traction on that, but I'll make the same motion on the commission floor and next week if it doesn't do anything here.
So, going back to the, that would be the training and equipment that totaled $742,940.
I don't wanna know that guy's name. I don't wanna give him that much respect to spend $750,000 of our taxpayers' money because of him.
Okay, we do have a motion. Is there a second?
That was on your list, Charlie.
Well, if the motion dies for lack of a second, I'll say that I think that the
Excuse me, we need a second. Do we have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
Speak volumes.
Commissioner Baum.
I think the approach that several commissioners have wanted to take is to allocate money for SROs on a gradual basis where we're not hiring 13 at one time. Pay for a couple the first year and then next year try and hire a couple more. Hiring 13 in 1 year it seems to be more than we have the money for. So I heard what Commissioner Jordan said, but I think that the sentiment isn't to not hire any SROs. It's just to hire as many as we can afford without hiring so many that we need a tax increase at this moment. So that's why I didn't second your motion. I think we have the ability to hire a couple, but I don't think we have the ability to hire 13 in 1 year.
We got 2 in the budget for the high school already.
At the high school, we have to do those two.
Right.
So you're talking about 11 or less.
Well, who gets to play God and decide which schools get them and which schools don't?
I
I
thought
mean,
most elementary schools had a half-time one.
Yeah,
just
they got a
made it.
half.
If you start
Okay.
adding 2, that's when you skew it.
They
All elementary schools do
They
share
share.
an
Mhm.
SRO, yes.
If you add 2, then that's when you start acting playing God and giving the chosen school one. In my opinion, you either do the elementary schools 100% or do them 50%. We're doing them 50%. If you go over that, that's when you start showing partiality.
Well,
See what he's saying. That's what's bad about yours.
it's been voted down here, and it may not, and of course, it will come back up on the floor on the 28th, I guess it is. But, you know, my opinion now is just as strong as it was. And I mentioned tonight, I brought this up in public safety. It may be a knee-jerk reaction, but that's why I brought it up in, and that's why we're debating it now. This has been months and months and months. And that, to me, is not a knee-jerk reaction. That's a deliberate action on my part to put those SROs in those schools. And I'm not jerking my knee. I want them in there. I want that. And it may not mean anything to anybody else, but to me, I don't want to think about leaving, having done this job, and had the opportunity to put those people in these schools, and we have a gunman come in and hurt somebody. I don't want that on my conscience for the rest of my life. Now, 1 penny on the tax rate may be too much for some people, but the people that have called me, my constituents, want these SROs in their schools, and they are sharing them now. They don't have them. There are some kids are fortunate, they've got them there all the time. Now, a lot of people say, well, they're not needed, but the rapport that these officers have with these younger children really makes a difference in their lives, in some of them. And there are specific examples that are out there. You watch these officers walk down the hallways in these elementary schools, and you've got kids virtually mobbing them, running over and hugging them. You know, the respect that law enforcement is gaining and the trust that these children learn in our law enforcement and our laws in the schools by itself is enough to put those in there, besides the safety aspect. Now, that's where I'm coming from. And like I said, the people that have contacted me out of my area want these in there. And that's parents, that's grandparents. They want these SROs in their schools full time. And it's going to cost us a penny a year after this on our tax rate to do that. And I think it's money well spent.
I will say that if I felt in my heart that this would save one child's life, I'd vote to bankrupt the county tomorrow for one child. If you could show me for a fact it would save one child. But I've had people at the Sheriff's Department tell me if that guy in Sandy Hook had had an SRO there, that would just been his first target, and he would have moved right on.
Not necessarily.
You know, I'm just saying that's what somebody told me, you know, in their opinion. Everybody's got an opinion.
Everybody's got
You know, but
But something you haven't mentioned is the people that are in the schools themselves that are working there. And what just the thought that they have a deputy in that school and I don't know, what's the word, the lessened anxiety that they have every time they read something. And we're talking Sandy Hook, but it's been all over the country. And not just in schools, but you can't go into a mall and this kind of thing. And prevention, the thought, is also something that comes into it. And you never know who will turn away and go somewhere else or think twice maybe.
Well, there's a trust factor that builds up with these SROs, with these students in these schools. A lot of times these students won't go to a teacher and tell, hey, I saw Johnny with a gun in his backpack, but they'll darn sure go to that SRO on the side and talk to them. And that's where, you know, one of the big benefits of having that, you know, we don't see the statistics that I used to see, and we don't read in the newspaper where so-and-so was caught out here at Riverdale or over at Oakland or over at Blackman with a pistol, or they were out there in the, or whatever. Drugs.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not seeing those kind of statistics now, and I know that the sheriff is not bringing some of those things to us, but those things are not happening to the frequency, and I'm sure there's still some idiots out there trying to do stuff like that. But you don't see that kind of stuff happening here where, you know, look at Metro. I mean, you don't have to look far to see alternatives and what happens in other areas that don't have these kind of officers in their schools.
Okay, gentlemen, we had a motion, and that motion died for a lack of a second. Is there anything else that someone would like to make a motion
Lisa.
concerning this budget?
Madam Chairman, and Mayor and everyone else, I voted against the 10 cents the last time, just strictly because of, we've gone through this budget with a fine-tooth comb. We looked at it hard, made some tough decisions on some stuff we need to do or think we need to do, and then we came out with 10 cents, and I understand the mayor coming with the 10 cents and to help us in the next year. But I believe this year it's about 6.5 cents to take care of what we've approved as a budget committee from day one through to now. Am I correct in saying that, or where are we as far as balancing this budget right here?
Okay, when you say balance, what do you mean balance?
Well,
Because if you want to balance revenues to expenses,
I'm
we
talking
need to add a whole
about,
lot
I'm talking
more.
about added pennies. I put the pencil to it from day one going through here, and after hearing the sheriffs and also the school, I was looking at and thinking we're around 6.5 cents on the tax rate, but we're gonna have to ask for in order to get through this year and continue on with the same plan that we're with. And then we're looking at 3.5 cents over that to go in to help us out with funding next year possibly.
Well, it just changed.
You have to really drill down to ask yourself, what, if any, increase over your 3% the school is required to have in any fund balance do you want? Do you want any? In other words, it takes 5 cents to get 3.55%. That's where you would wind up if you appropriate,
With the 5 cents.
if you set the additional 5 cents for them. And do you want any in excess of 15% for your county general funds to be available for an emergency purpose or otherwise? It takes 5 cents and you will have 17.51% based on these projections. So you have to first decide, how far down do you want to push this to your policy limits? Then you can determine how many pennies you can take off of the 10 cents.
The one thing, all things being equal, except everything being equal, and we move 1 year down the road, and you have the full year of this health insurance premium in effect. Right now, what is in this budget is only 1/2 the year. For the second, so it would be like a full year, and say nothing happens in 2015, rates are gonna be the same. For the general fund, I think it's 600,000 or 700,000 I'd have to add in appropriations. But Jeff, what would you have to add?
2,763,000.
Yeah.
So right then, you would have to increase appropriations just for that piece.
Just for that one piece. And if the school board has to increase theirs 2 million, this 1.6 million, if you take that away, they're already in the hole. They don't have enough to do that unless you raise taxes next year to just take care of the health insurance increase.
The elephant in the room is pay raises.
Excuse me.
Of course, our budgeting is worst-case scenario. It shows as poor as we could possibly anticipate income from taxes and all the expenditure.
Well, this
You know,
assumes,
so-
if you appropriate this, you're saying, you're giving this money, allocating this money to the various departments. One thing that is conservative is that we budget all positions being filled all year long. That's where we gain, is that we do have some turnover. You do have some, these are estimates. Pick utilities. You've seen it both ways. You've seen where we get to the end of the year and we're short in utilities. You've seen it where we've had money left over. Insurance, we estimate where people are at this moment today. We don't know what the changes are gonna be, what things, plans people will pick on January 1, 2014. You've had some years, again, you didn't use it all, and some, we had to come back for money out of fund balance to take care of the insurance. It's all estimates, and like you said, Commissioner Durden, we hope that we budget conservative by doing all
You
of
have to
it.
budget conservative, but you
Right.
have to kind of count for unexpected, such as the chillers at the jail
And the things that
the
come
brick
in.
remediation and things such as that.
The revenues, that same way. The revenues are estimated based on history and trends and where we think it's gonna be. You know, being in this position 10 years, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it estimated and us on that trend of revenue coming in like this, and it would be over our estimates. I've seen it this way too, where it didn't come in. So it's all a budgetary, they're all estimates. And hopefully that we're conservative enough in our revenues. And I think one of the speakers last night said, well, why don't we wait until next, get through the year to see where revenues are? Well, to me, this what we are doing in setting our policy limits is doing that. We're saying, look, we've gained some this year. What can we use from that we think we're gonna get this year that we can fund into next year? Still being conservative along the way.
I don't think they're supporting the commission for a 10-cent increase. So I think we need to whittle it down somewhere, in my humble opinion. I haven't been out counting votes or politicking or anything, but I just don't think there are 11 votes on the full commission for a 10-cent increase. I may be wrong.
If I felt that way, knowing what you know about the insurance, I'd definitely leave schools alone. That if you're gonna take,
Because we already know, about 2.8 million for next year for schools.
that's what I'm saying, if everything else remained the same, and you just had a full year of that health insurance premium, we would be adding that much to the appropriations.
Okay, could that be a starting point for us then, in consideration of that, in leaving 5 cents in for schools? How does the committee feel about that? Are we to the point that we could have a consensus on that? Gentlemen, I need some help here.
You could take, definitely with these estimates, if you did take, pennies away from schools, what was it, 2 cents, I think 16.
Well, the school is a little under 500,000, right at 500,000. So you can get down to 3%.
500.
You can get down to 3%, and
Take 2 cents.
you can take 3 pennies out of it.
3 cents.
You can take 3 cents out and be right at 3%, but you won't have anything to build up to be able to pay the additional cost just on the one thing that we're talking about on health insurance
For next year.
for next year. So next year you'll have to put on more than the 3. You got to put on 3 plus 3. You got to put on another 3 at least just to, no, not more than 3. You're going to put on another 5 to take care of the 2.5 or 2.8. And put on another 6 for schools next year just to accommodate the health insurance. Whereas if you leave it like you have it here, you'll build potentially a little bit of reserve to help cushion the 2.8. You won't have to come up with the whole 2.8 and still stay within the state 3% requirement. That's not our policy, that's state requirement. So you're just gonna
That's
put.
getting to be a huge number,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we've got a $300 million school budget.
That's right.
3%. Now, I said this a couple of months ago, I found a piece of paper from the early 80s that my mother had saved in the closet, and the school budget was 24-point-something million back in the 80s. And 3% of that was a small number, but now we're keeping $9 million because the state says we have to keep it.
But we gotta have money.
We have that to get through
to-
before the
right,
property tax
I mean,
comes in and all that.
exactly.
I know
I
it's
mean,
just a
because
whole
the-
lot of money sitting in.
Yes.
Their cash flow is huge compared to the rest of our department's cash flow, so they need that much surplus just to manage payroll.
The other alternative is then, to that is that we will be borrowing money to operate in the first few months.
We haven't done that before though, have we? We've come close.
Years
but
ago,
we-
years ago, we have done that.
Not in the last
No,
12 years.
I
We've
know
come
not-
close.
no.
I know
Yeah,
we've
I've
come
done
real
it.
close to making payroll in September.
Now, there
and
was,
October.
in my tenure, there was
It's not
one,
something we want to do.
No.
December, isn't that right, Jeff? December, and it was the day payroll was going out was we were sweating it. And luckily, the BEP money from the state came in. But if it was 20 days, it was late. So, that's, I know that, you can look at the cash of the county and say, well, you had it in other funds, but the trustee's not allowed to let us overspend a fund.
Well, Commissioner Jordan made a a good point. You've got some commissioners that are just gonna vote no, whether it's a penny or whether it's 10 cents or 20 cents, it really doesn't matter, because it's considered a tax increase. And I understand that. This county didn't get the school system, the jobs, the community we have on setting still. Every year you flip on the news after budgets have gone through and everything, and there's a county out there somewhere that their school buses won't run because they don't have the money or they didn't appropriate the money. It happens every year somewhere. But, it gets down to the point where we as a budget committee have gone through, like I said, with a fine-tooth comb. What do you cut? That's the issue. We didn't come up with a number, just nice, even round 10-cent number, just to come up with it. It was thought.
There was some logic behind
There
that.
was logic and thought and some good estimation from our finance director. And the rest of us going through a really tough budget, which is every year's tough, it doesn't matter. But it's I'm not comfortable with 10 cents. I don't have a solution right at this point, but I don't know where to cut. And if you say a number, if you throw a number out there, hey, let's just, like I was talking about, 6.5 cents, then back up what you're talking about. Because that's what we went through and said, this is what it's gonna cost us. So, what's left is what we're talking about, giving a little wiggle room here, or giving us the security of getting through these estimated numbers for next year. That's where it's at. That's where the leverage is.
Well, I guess, on some things, we talk about, we don't know what's coming. You don't always know what's coming, but some
I don't know what's coming in my household, but I know how much money I got. And it doesn't. I don't get to go out there and ask my neighbors, hey, I'm a little short this month, can I get some more money? I'm gonna back off a little bit. If you don't know where to pull it from, I don't want to start throwing numbers out there. I don't think it's fair to the budget and our hard work. So it may end up that way on the floor. So I'm gonna ask you budget committee members to be ready to hang in there for what you're voting for.
I would urge any commissioners that do come up with a cut to
Yeah.
identify it.
Because we've done it
Say-
before. We've got it on the floor and there's numbers just throwing out. Well, I didn't get a second on that one, let's try this. Have some backing on where you're cutting, where you want to do it.
Commissioner Jordan, I did present a list of some cuts that are at least a place to start, or at least a place to consider if you're interested. We've looked at it before. This isn't the first time I brought it up.
Let's hear 'em then.
Y'all got that piece of paper?
Are you willing to make a motion? Are you ready to make a motion, Commissioner Vaughn?
No, I'm just referring to the.
You can
I'll
talk, but
I'll
don't
call it
make
a,
motion.
I'll call it a roadmap of different areas to cut. I passed it out several weeks ago.
I've got that instant stuff, but I don't think I have it here with me.
I have mine.
You got the floor, Commissioner.
Well, a portion of it comes from taking some of these items that we place a high priority on and trying to identify how many of them we can afford this next fiscal year. And that's not, and some of the big items are SROs, vehicles, and pay increases for employees. And in the outline I passed out several weeks ago, we can't afford all of it at this particular moment. I agree with Commissioner P. I think some of these items are important, like SROs. But to avoid a tax increase, you'd have to get what you can this year, or this upcoming fiscal year, and you'd have to prioritize some of the remaining items for the next fiscal year.
Commissioner, I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm a little off here. Let's just pick out the SRO program. Are you on with the SROs, or are you off with the SROs?
I'm on with the SROs, and that's why I didn't second Commissioner Jordan's
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
But my plan calls for hiring 5 of the 13 in this next fiscal year. 2 of those 5 would be at Stewart's Creek High School.
Mhm.
I acknowledge that. 2 of them
Okay.
are at the new high school. All the high schools have SROs.
Gotcha.
The remaining 3 would be at elementary schools.
How you gonna pick the 3 high elementary schools?
That's not my job to say which ones they go to. You could put them on a rotating basis so that they split time equally if we wanted, if our primary concern there is treating these different elementary schools equally. Put them on a rotating basis. My understanding is that they're on a rotating basis anyway. That there's no school without an SRO. There's just no school without an SRO. There's just no school without an SRO all day long.
Right.
So they're already on a rotating basis. If you want to make it completely equitable, I don't have any problem with that. You hire 3 more for elementary schools this next fiscal year and put them on a basis where they go to these elementary schools an equal portion of time. Now, if that's not practical, I understand. The sheriff's shaking his head. Maybe that approach would have them driving all over town all day long. It may not be appropriate. I'm just trying to come up with a response to your concern that it's not equitable to hire 3 SROs for elementary schools, and they don't all the elementary schools don't necessarily get one. This approach calls for getting 20 of the 30.
Commissioner Baum, if I could stop you right there, since you suggested this with the SROs, may I ask the sheriff to join us at the table and respond to this proposal? That would be cutting 8
Let me just say
and
first,
sharing them,
to remind everybody,
some kind of a rotation.
I didn't put the SROs in my budget, but I do support it 100%.
If you will respond to what Commissioner Baum has suggested.
What you're suggesting, 2 of them will go to the high school, naturally. You've got 3. I have a rough estimate coming off the top of my head because I wasn't prepared to speak about it tonight. But let's say we've got 10 schools in the county, 10 elementary schools, and we've got 5 SROs currently. They split that. Well, then what you're going to do is you're going to give 3 SROs, and because it falls into my budget, I decide where they go. And that's the problem that we come up with, because naturally everywhere I go and talk to people all over the county, they want the SROs. And now you get into a bidding war going, we want them out here, let's say Lascassas. Well, we want them down here in Laverne. I want one out here in Eagleville. Well, no, I want one over here. And so now you're putting the burden on me to try to figure out where it's at. I'll figure it out. That's not a problem, but that's the whole, that in itself becomes a problem of where they go. And so then you're almost going to have different parts of the county now bidding and calling us going, well, hey, we got a lot of people out here that really want them. Put them out here.
I agree that you'd have to use the information you have to assign them as appropriately as possible, and that decision might be based partially on equity.
Well, and then there's been the other part that's been thrown out by commissioners going, hey, the commissioners that aren't voting for this, pull the commissioners out of their district and fill all the ones in my school district, and don't worry about them, because the commissioners are speaking for the people in their district. So, you know, here we go around again, around robin of, you're putting it all on me. I'll deal with it if that's what you choose, but in a lot of ways, I don't think that's fair. It's either you give me 2, you give me whatever, I'll deal with it, but you're putting a lot of liability and burden on us.
I understand it's a tough decision, and I can appreciate that. I guess since the SROs at some schools are already on a rotating basis, then maybe
Every elementary school is assigned 2 schools, and when I was at an elementary school, when I was SRO, I had Roy Waldron and Smyrna Elementary, and the way I split my schedule was Monday and Wednesday at one
Probably
school.
shouldn't say what you do.
Well, that was
That was
mine.
him.
That was
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
This was, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, there's different
Yeah.
schedules. And so then you split a day, or and you just did it however, and it was all based on what you had going on in your school too.
Sure, it's a tough decision, but at a minimum, I agree. I don't think it's up to commissioners to tell you how to assign the SROs. We're just identifying SROs as a priority. I agree with Commissioner P, and again, that's why I didn't second Commissioner Jordan's motion. I'd like to get these SROs in the school, but the budget we have doesn't allow us to hire 13 new SROs without a tax increase, particularly with some of the other items on the items that we're considering. Two of the other big items in this outline that we discussed 2 weeks ago are patrol cars, and this plan calls for purchasing 20 this year instead of 30, and I'm concerned that we need all 30, but if we get 20 this year and maybe get 20 next year, then maybe we can get caught up in that area, but we don't have the money to get caught up all at once. And here's just my point of
We've
comparison.
fallen
Last
behind
year,
on that
I know,
every year.
last year we spent $100,000 on patrol cars, so that's
Again,
buying two. So if we go from buying 2 to buying 20, we're moving in the right direction. What if we get 20 this year and 20 next year? Then over the long run, we can get your department where it needs to be. But the budget doesn't have enough money to buy 30 in 1 year. And then the third big item on that plan is the pay increases. The plan I have takes out the $700,000 pay increase. Now, since that plan was introduced, it didn't get a lot of interest at the time, and so I haven't really updated it. But since it got introduced, we've actually increased county employee pay in the general fund another $840,000. So if you want to go back to that plan, we've actually made changes that are increasing the amount of pay for county employees. Now, I'm concerned that county employees aren't earning competitive salaries. And so I'd like to do what we can to pay our employees more. I think we're trying to do as much as we can to help them with their health insurance premiums. That issue's been extensively debated, but I think the crux of most of it is let's help our employees. I'd like to help our employees with a pay increase, but I don't think we have $1.5 million in this budget to do it. And here's where I get that number. The original proposed budget had $700,000 in pay increases. We tacked on another $840,000, so that's about $1.5 million. The plan I have does have room for a pay increase, but it's not one that big.
How much does your plan have allow?
Well, again, I'll answer your question, but I'm going to say the numbers have changed from my plan because we've tacked other expenditures on. But here's where I think, here's an example of a pay increase I think you could give. When you make cuts from the general fund, you reduce the amount of money that you have to keep on hand through these requirements that we have in our unassigned fund balance. So when you make the cuts that I'm suggesting, you're simultaneously also benefiting from not having to keep as much money in fund balance. So when you make $2 million in cuts, you actually end up with $300,000 extra because we're required to keep 15% of our expenditures in this fund. So if you cut $2 million, you actually end up with $300,000 extra. Commissioner Schaefer several weeks ago said, what if we paid our employees in the general fund a flat increase of, was it $300?
I don't remember what because I threw that out to consider.
Something like a flat increase of about $300 per employee. It's not a percentage increase. It's just an amount per employee. I think the cost would come in around $300,000. Ms. Nolan can tell me if I'm right on that. So that's just an illustration of where I think you've got enough money to provide about a $300,000 pay increase to general fund employees, but not $1.5 million. Just to put it in perspective, I think with this plan you could provide about 20% of the pay increase that the current proposed budget has in it. And we'd like to do more. But this plan is designed to do all this without a tax increase so that you hit these limits. What's the most SROs we can hire? What's the most patrol cars? What's the most pay increase? up to that point where
And
we
one
just can't
thing
afford anymore.
You know, I'm gonna throw this out here, and we're gonna create a bunch of controversy. I offered to cut $500,000 out of my budget whenever I wanted to get rid of crossing guards for the city. So,
Yeah, I remember.
that right there would do the
I know,
SROs,
I know.
and that's for the cities. So there's you an idea. There's a way you can reverse the money and.
And then Commissioner Sandlin, there's some smaller cuts on that page as well that probably are not make or break items, but they're items that as we went through the process, it just seemed like they were a little bit less essential than some of the other items. I'm not saying any of them are unessential, but they just seemed a little bit less essential.
That much of it.
One of them was that stormwater inspector there, and we can't do that.
Well, here's my rationale. It's a new position. So whatever we need to do with stormwater, we're doing it this year. Maybe regulations are increasing, but surely they're not increasing to the point that whatever we need to do.
Building codes has been loaning them an inspector
Yeah.
to do that, and now building's picked up and they've taken their inspector back.
Because we
So not only have regulations gone up, they've lost that person.
Yeah.
They were just doing a stopgap measure of using a codes inspector.
But again,
Now,
I
this
mean,
is an unfunded mandate that's been brought down
I
from
mean,
the state anyway, but I mean.
it all ends up
That's
being.
the feds.
Commissioner Sandlin, it all ends up being
Yeah.
a trade-off. If
Yeah.
you want that extra stormwater inspector,
Mhm.
then that means one less patrol car. So in this plan, which may or may not be acceptable at all, it seemed to me like it was a new position, and I'd rather have a patrol
Mhm.
car instead of that position.
Y'all had a thought on what he had mentioned or something on the flat rate or something?
Well, I can tell you that the employee's piece of just the additional insurance is more than $300 per year per person in every category. 300 in the copay plan, it's 350 or so in the deductible plan, and it's less than that on the HR. It's about 200. So $300 would barely cover their insurance increase.
Yeah, I'm not debating that point at all. I just thought you could give each employee in the general fund approximately a $300 a year pay increase.
There's 800 full-time employees in the general fund.
Right.
So there you go.
So I mean, if you gave each employee a $300 pay increase, I using rough numbers, I was saying it would cost about $300,000, and the reason it would seem to cost more than your 800 and some odd employee statistic would suggest is because I think benefits would be going up too as you raise pay. So I think the whole package combined,
Someone's getting a max of 5,000.
I think the school board and the highway department deserve everything they get. And basically, every year they get increases. In some years, the state of Tennessee tells the school board how many additional dollars they get. They continue to get increases that they well deserve. And we continue to not give our county general employees raises that they deserve. 75% or more of our employees are being, I think, reasonably adequately compensated. But whenever there is a time that we have to balance a budget, we balance the budget on the back of our county general employees. We cannot continue to attract competent, professional, experienced people. This county is growing and going to continue to grow, and the people we have in these jobs, their abilities have to be continuing to expand, or we can't meet the needs of our citizens. So I just think it's inappropriate for us to continue to try to take 20 or 25% of our people and balance our budget off of their backs, and all of the other 80% of our employees get what is fair and reasonable. I just can't equate that to being reasonable.
Well, I think that's what the committee's sentiments were a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
But then Commissioner Jordan said, "Where's some place we can cut?" So I brought it back up, but I wasn't planning on it.
Well, it looks like we better pack our lunch on that Friday, so,
Bring a
That,
sleeping
and we can
bag.
come back Saturday.
yeah, yeah. Sunday or however long it takes, so.
We need to have it, yeah.
I think there's something else. I think you better decide whether you can compromise or come to a consensus, or if you can't, like, it'll definitely go into next fiscal year. We've never done that, I don't think, in this county. A lot of them, it's a yearly
See,
thing.
You can't get down on the school board to 3% required fund balance. You can't escape a property tax increase. The most you have on the table is taking 3 cents of their 5 away, so you're gonna have to be stuck with 2 cents left for them as an increase, just to balance, but unless you so choose to arbitrarily say, you've got $1 million less than you've asked for. You've asked for 300,000, we're gonna give you 299. That's the only way you can balance the school board's budget without a property tax increase. And still be right at 3% with no ability to cover the future insurance costs, which are going to be a nickel or more the next fiscal year. So you're putting off a lot more pain till next year.
Do you want that?
About 10 years ago, we talked about not opening Siegel High School because we're having trouble getting the budget passed. I hope we don't get back to that same position with it.
It could happen. Stop the presses, stop the presses.
Well, gentlemen, are we at this point going to stay with the recommendation that we presented at the public hearing and just with the additional change that the finance director reported to us a few minutes ago?
I don't think anything that we change tonight is gonna matter at all come a week from Friday. I mean, it's still gonna happen. We're gonna be there, we're gonna be kicking things around like we did 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was. So we can get things in our own mind. We've presented things tonight that if any of the other commissioners watch or follow it on YouTube later on or something like that, they'll have an idea where we are. And they ought to have some ideas then when they come in.
I agree completely. Doesn't matter what we do here tonight, we're just moving it forward to the full commission. I mean, we can argue here all night, argue again there all day, but this is just moving it forward to where it matters. It doesn't matter what we do here. We could cut the tax rate in half here tonight, but what happens in that room next Friday is what matters.
So you're saying might as well wait and cut it in there?
But we do
What about
need-
the revenue on these
we do-
revenue
the revenue,
adjustments?
these changes in revenue appropriations,
Yeah.
That's just what, you need to approve those
We need-
revenue adjustments, because that's just bookkeeping.
No, it's
No,
it's
it's
a
with the-
appropriation
Well, the
resolution.
brokers, yeah.
Right, because that is just, I mean, that's, it's not, in one sense, it's not just bookkeeping,
But in one sense it is.
yeah. But the appropriation
Yeah,
is.
that's with
that- and I guess
Those are with the 10 cents is what basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
those items, I guess to think about if we're gonna put it in next year's budget or wait till you get back in August,
I've looked at
is the
some.
33,500 for the EMA, that tower that y'all
I know.
are going to,
Some things
that
that
y'all
I
just
can do.
approved to
Comes down to
acquire
it.
and
there's some things that I can't do, but I know there's some that's
adjust.
not gonna do anything.
The 60,000 on the building improvements, you can wait and not do that one. And then, we don't,
But they're so insignificant.
There's-
It's
I guess
with
in
this
the whole thing.
discussion.
Just leave it as is.
Yeah.
They're real numbers that we're gonna need in there.
So, I mean, cause really that just, so we're just leave, go with what we've got, not make these changes.
Well, you,
That's what we're saying.
you don't make these changes, this increase in the estimated,
Well, that's just,
unassigned
that's
fund
the
balance.
estimate, that's the beginning estimate.
So they
It's
don't have
just-
to approve that?
They don't approve that, that's just,
So you don't need a motion from us then
Except
for that?
she
just
needs it on these-
revenues and appropriation is the only thing I need to make sure y'all agree on. That that's what we're going in with.
Well, those changes are really fairly small, and they're all favorable to the
Yeah.
budget process. The net effect of them.
Well, if we don't approve that after the finance director, brought it up to us, then we're saying that we ought to be the finance director,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
right.
I'll make a motion and we approve the revenue adjustments.
I'll second it. I mean, I think we need to know this.
Okay, so on, just to clarify, revenues for the general fund, 79,667,2. And then those adjustments, we're gonna do those? 83,110,306. And then with, wrapped up in schools, revenues, 289,652,377. That's really the only changes.
Okay, that is the motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
No.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
That's part of it.
Is there anything else we need to do tonight?
Same.
No.
Nothing else tonight. Gentlemen, our next meeting is Wednesday, next week, June 26th, and that is when we will do the tax levy and the tax appropriation resolutions. Is there any other business that needs to come before our committee?
26, you said Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, June 26th, 5:30. Gentlemen, thank you. We are adjourned.